Aloha and welcome to Wind in Her Hair. I'm Anna, your host, and this episode is all about the gift of isolation and how sometimes life pulls you away to prepare you for your purpose and for love and all sorts of things. So, buckle up, Buttercup, because this one's going to be really good. The season of isolation or aloneness is so dear to my heart. It's been an experience that I've had that I would never undo. And there was so much growth and beauty that came out of the season that I could have never even imagined. I had no idea what was coming my way. But I am so excited that God loved me enough to bring me through this season and to do this pruning, purging work in my life. And I went into it like Anna 1.0 and Anna 2.0. Well, technically, I'm not officially out. I'm on the tail end. But let's dive into it. There's going to be, I think, 3 or 4 sections to this. I'm looking at my notes right now on my laptop because your time is valuable and I want to stay focused. I want to talk about the difference between loneliness and isolation. So when you're lonely, it's more of a mindset of, I'm missing someone. But isolation, there's real purpose to it. And it's more about, I'm becoming someone. And I didn't know this before this amazing journey that I went on. My journey started in Florida in mid-July when I was living with my older son and his girlfriend and they broke up. And so he moved up north. She stayed in the house. And I said, well, what am I going to do? Where should I go? So I just blindfolded myself and spun myself around in a little corner and just my finger landed on Nashville on the wall map. That's not really what happened, but I had always toyed with the idea of moving to Nashville for music because I write country music, I play the guitar, and I could also model here and work on my coaching business. And so I said, okay, why not? Let's go to Nashville. So I loaded up a U-Haul trailer. I had a hitch installed on my Jeep and I took the 12-hour road trip to Nashville. I rented an apartment online and moved into the studio thinking it was only going to be maybe for a couple of months and had no idea that God had other plans for me. These last 3 months of my life have been the biggest teacher to me. My growth has been fast tracked these last few months. I do not feel like the same person I was when I walked through my front door on July 17th. So the point of this podcast is to let you know when you are set apart and forced into a season of aloneness, it is not punishment. It is a season of preparation to prepare you for a bigger purpose or for another relationship that's even better than the one you've had. So let's talk about the first section is the purpose of isolation. When God or life, and by the way, you don't have to be religious to relate. This is a universal lesson that sometimes life puts us in a situation where we're forced to be alone. And again, it's not to punish us. There's a thoughtful reason behind all of this. And when God can get you into a season of solitude, it's there that the most profound work is done in a place of quiet where he strips away all of the distractions, all of the things that kept you from really learning to listen to God or your high power. Because when you really stop and you learn to listen to that still small voice, that's where the breakthrough and the answers and the vision comes from. And isolation is not rejection. It's redirection. So when I first came to Nashville, I thought that I would be going out almost every night and listening to live music. And I was drinking at the time and I was going on dates, as miserable as they all were. And I was going to really get some wind in my hair and write music and do a lot of co-writing. And I had all these grand plans in my mind of what life in Nashville would be like, but it has not turned out the way that I planned at all. And I don't regret any of it. Section 2, the purpose of isolation. It is not to punish you or discipline you. It's to prepare you. It's to refine you. And that's where the most work is done. It's like fast tracked. I have this 2-day in-person immersion for my clients where I am with them in person and I do deep dive coaching and then we go out into society and I watch them interact with other people. I watch their body language. I give them real-time feedback. And it is like 8 weeks of coaching combined in 2 days. And so that's why I call it the fast track coaching method. And so the gift of isolation is not much different than that. It's like 3 months or however long the season is of growth and pruning and purging and breakthrough and healing, and so many good things come from it. And when everything familiar gets stripped away from you, what's left is what's real. For me, everything that I depended on, my ex-boyfriend, my kids, my friends, my routine, that was all stripped away from me. And I moved to a city where I didn't know anybody. And I thought that I would have all this community here. And I thought that I would get wind in my hair and go listen to live music and be drinking and meet some new cool people. Well, none of that has happened at all. In fact, when I moved to Nashville, I pretty much stopped drinking. I have not gone out that often at all, except for work and sometimes to listen to live music. I did go on some pretty terrible dates and then decided I'm done with that. And God brought me to a place where He stripped away all the distractions, the drinking and the seeking validation and attention from men. And I realized that growth does not come in the crowds, around all the people, around all the noise. It comes in the quiet where you can be forced to sit with yourself and your suffering and your issues. And it teaches you emotional regulation because you have no one else to rely on to regulate your emotions, to meet your needs. It's only you and it's only God. Growth doesn't come through comfort. It comes through the wilderness season of everything around you kind of drying up and relationships ending and doors closing. But you've got to remember this is a season of growth and blessing. And so if you're in the season right now, like I'm excited for you, honestly. If you were in a season of isolation before and you didn't embrace it, well, I'm sure you'll get another opportunity. And looking back during my marriage, now I see so clearly I was in a season of isolation and I bucked and I fought. I did not have the same perspective I have now. I was absolutely miserable. I felt so sorry for myself. And I wish I could go back and undo that and do it differently, but there's no point in that. So now that I'm in a new season of isolation, I'm embracing it. This next section is the bridge season between who you were and who you're becoming. I love this. So, isolation, think of it as a bridge. You're on this bridge right now. You can't go back to who you were, but you also can't see what's happening at the end of the bridge. God uses this middle ground to teach you trust and patience and healing and possibly forgiveness like it was for me. So much work has been done since I've been in this place that I call a sanctuary. It's a studio, really nice, very comfortable. There's a sauna and a cold plunge and a beautiful gym, a putting green, a pickleball court, outdoor fireplace. There's all sorts of places to work. There's a bar, there's a coffee bar, there's a concierge. It's really, really nice. And so I've called this place my sanctuary where all the healing has taken place. And so it's been in this room where I have learned to be done with all the distractions and really just literally, I'm being straightforward with you, just get on my knees in prayer and surrender and saying, God, all my life I have fought to have my own way and to avoid pain and to make myself happy. And I thought that I had all the answers, and to the point where I said, I give up. Every time I come up short. And I'm tired of that. You know best. You see everything. You know everything. Why am I trying to do it my own way when all I can do is just surrender to you and trust you that you have a better plan for my life than I could ever have for myself? Just like a caterpillar in a cocoon. That little holding place, I don't think would be very comfortable. But it's necessary to do the work so eventually that little cocoon metamorphoses into a beautiful butterfly and it can soar off and fulfill its purpose of being a butterfly. And so the gift of isolation, the season of isolation is exactly like being a cocoon and a butterfly. So when you have that perspective, it's actually really exciting to say, okay, this season is not that comfortable. I literally have no friends. I don't have any community. I have an amazing church that I go to, but there's a lot more 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds in Nashville than I realized. And I don't do the same things I used to do. I'm not getting as much wind in my hair. And again, I know it's just a season, but I just want to encourage you to not try and run to the other end of the bridge. I want to encourage you to walk, to take your time, to not feel like you have to rush it to get it done with because God is trying to do a work in your life. So just let Him. He brought you this far because He loves you and He has a plan. So just trust Him. So, this next section is what God is doing in isolation. We kind of brushed on it in previous sections, but I just want you to know He's not ignoring you at all. He is upgrading you. And the only way He can do that is by stripping away the distractions. I stopped going on dates. Yeah, they were pretty bad. But I would go on these dates and I would come back home and I'd be like, that was such a freaking waste of time. What am I doing? And I heard God's voice saying, yeah, Anna, what the hell are you doing? I was like, well, I don't know. I felt bad. Like I needed to go out and network or, like this person flew into town just to see me. So I need to go see him. No, 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 Anna, you don't. You are the boundary. You set the boundaries. You raise your standards. There's no obligation dating anymore. And so he got my attention, was like, you know what, God, you're right. No more dating, no more being intimate with men. Like, trust me, it's a hard thing to be abstinent. I did a post recently on my Instagram about how I'm abstinent, which is wild because that makes me sound like I'm some person who gets around. I don't. But I am a very sensual, sexual person and I'm affectionate. Physical touch is my love language. So I love cuddling. I love affection. But that was another thing, a distraction that God took away from me one at a time. So He took away men. He took away going out. He took away drinking. He took away me looking for the world and social media for my affirmation and attention because He's pruning away all these distractions and breaking off unhealthy attachments. So let's talk about one of the unhealthy attachments. And this is about drinking. Personally, I'm not saying you should stop drinking at all, but I was drinking for the wrong reasons. I was drinking because I felt guilty because I left Hawaii with my two younger kids there who are now 14 and 17 to come to the mainland to pursue a calling and a better life that would one day cause me to become financially independent and debt free and leave a legacy for my children. I left the small-minded community on the North Shore of Oahu and just believed that God was going to put me in a better situation where I could have my kids come over after a couple months and we would all have better lives. And that was not the case. They came, they visited me, they didn't like it, they went back to Hawaii. And they're at the age where I can't force them to come live with me. They're old enough now and also their dad is not encouraging it, so that makes it even harder. So I got to another place, same thing. Another place, same thing. Another place, same thing. And so I felt guilty because I've missed out on so much precious time with them. And yes, I do get to see them every 6 to 8 weeks, but I've missed out. I went from being a daily hands-on homeschooling mother to not being with them every day, not tucking them in and tickling their backs and singing them songs and waking up in the morning and making them hot chocolate and putting on classical music and lighting candles and studying Latin together and doing art projects and going on field trips. This has been the hardest season of my life is being without them. And I feel like this past year, aside from a very loving, aligned relationship, which was, I don't even know what I've done without that relationship, but I felt like hell has come against me in almost every single way to try and prevent me from fulfilling this calling that God has on my life. And I know that when God has a big calling on your life, and there's a lot of preparation that needs to be done, that the enemy is going to come against you so hard. And so it's almost a good thing when you know the enemy is coming against you because you know he's worried, but you know that when God is for you, who can be against you? So in this season of isolation, God is healing my nervous system and helping me regulate my emotions and to trust Him and to have peace and to raise my standards and to set boundaries. And what looks like silence to you is actually His strategy, which is so reassuring to me. Isolation prepares you for the next season in your life and possibly even your next relationship. It definitely forces your healing and your emotional maturity because you can't take all of that crap, all of that dysfunction, all of those attachments and those distractions and that mindset into your next season of life when God is leveling you up. You cannot stay the same and do a greater work, period. So, what feels like just waiting around until the season passes is more about becoming someone while the season is passing. And so I don't have a TV. I haven't had a TV since I've been on the mainland and I don't watch TV. I have made the most of my time. Literally from the moment I get up to the moment I go to sleep, I am working on myself. And I don't say this to brag at all. I'm just say this to encourage you. If you're in a season of isolation and you're trying to resist it and run from it, don't. Don't waste this time, or you're just going to sign up for another lesson down the road. Embrace this time and make the most of it. And I'm going to tell you this, and you may not like it, but unplug your TV. See what happens when you don't have TV for a few weeks or a few months and how productive you become and how undistracted you are. So here's just a side note for healing and personal growth is that having a morning routine is so valuable. My morning routine changed my life and I would definitely encourage you to do it. So from 6 to 7, that's my grounding hour. That is the time where I journal, I do breath work, I meditate, I pray, I read my Bible, I read another book, and I say my mantras, and then I review my day, my goals, and all that takes about an hour. And I drink my electrolyte water and then I have my coffee. And that time is so precious to me because it's basically like a Zoom meeting for me. You know how people they schedule Zoom meetings with their partners or their bosses or their employees and nothing gets encroached on that usually. And so I want you to look at your workout time and your alignment time, whatever you want to call it, as your Zoom meetings. Like that is carved out time for me that nothing encroaches on it. From 6 to 7, that time is my grounding hour. It sets the tone for the rest of the day. Then from 7 to 8 is my workout hour. Go down to the gym, I work out, I stretch, jump in the cold plunge in the sauna if possible. And that does not get encroached upon either. And that is just a part of my life. It's like literally a daily Zoom with my boss. I don't even have to think about it. I just know that's going to happen from 7 to 8. And I don't go by my feeling, I go by the plan. The plan is to work out 6 days a week because I love the results. I love feeling healthy and strong and confident, and my body repays me for it. And then from 8 to 9, it's like powering vitamins, protein breakfast, and I get ready for my coaching calls. And I don't start coaching until 10 a.m. at the earliest. That's my sweet spot is from 10 to about 4 or 5. I'll take coaching calls and I only work Monday through Thursday. Friday is for my creativity and Saturday is for another day of creativity and brainstorming. And Sunday is a rest day, church, golf. So just throwing that out there. If you're in a season of isolation and you don't have a routine, you don't have a workout schedule, and you're watching TV and you are not making the most of this time, you're wasting your time because this is meant to be a gift to you. So embrace it. The most valuable gifts that I have gotten out of this season of aloneness is that as hard as it was to break up with my ex-boyfriend last March, it was so hard because I really leaned on him in a really good way, but almost too much. And I even looked at him as my mentor, and he believed in me and in my dreams, and he invested in my dreams, and he supported them, and he cheered me on. And I trusted him so much and his intuition and his guidance that I literally anytime I had a question, I would go to him for, what do you think about this? What should I do about this? And I just believed him because I know that he had my best interest in mind and I know that he had wisdom and intuition. And so I realized that when God ended that relationship, and maybe he could have been the right person, but it was definitely not the right time. And so I'm just trusting God enough to know, like, maybe that wasn't the right time, or maybe he wasn't even the right person, but he was in my life for a season to help me become the woman I am today. Because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be who I am today. And so when that relationship ended, we did go no contact, which was the best thing because I can see that it would have been very hard. As aligned and loving as we were, the relationship was not toxic at all, that it would have been very hard to continue to just to keep connected to each other. And then I moved away from my children And then I moved to a city all by myself that I didn't know anybody. And so God was just slowly taking these things out of my life that I was relying on and got me to a place where He got my full attention. I remember this moment. It wasn't too long ago, but I remember being on my living room floor on my knees, just in tears and just saying, okay, God, I give up. You have my full attention. What else do you want from me? I surrender. And that was the best thing I ever did because when you get to a place of surrender, it is so empowering. Like you think it's the opposite. When you give up everything, you would think that you'd feel weak, but you don't feel weak. You feel empowered because you can entrust your life and your future, your destiny to somebody who's greater and bigger and wiser and more loving than you. And it was during this season where I was forced to come to the realization that I needed to forgive people. I needed to forgive my father, my sisters, and even to the point where I emotionally forgave my ex-husband. And I thought I had before, but I got to the point where I was able to, not to his face, but just to thank him. Thank him for all the lessons I've learned, and not in a sarcastic way, but to really just say, wow, like if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be who I am today. And this is the best version of myself. So I'm able to change my mindset and to thank my ex husband, even though it was a miserable marriage. I can count on one hand the good memories we had after 13 years and two beautiful children, but I can actually be thankful for the lessons that I've learned and the pain that I experienced because I healed from it. And that pain was turned into my purpose. So, those were some of the special gifts that came out of this. Not to mention, I learned to fully trust God like I never have before. And if you think trusting God is saying, I trust you, and then grabbing that steering wheel, or when things don't go your way, you start to get that anxious feeling in your chest and you start to strategize, okay, who can I call? What can I do? Who can I talk to? No, that is not trust. And it got to the point where God got my attention and He said, Anna, darling, you either trust me or you don't. Make up your frickin' mind. Okay, well, He didn't use the word frickin', but He might have if He was here today. And I said, you're right, God. I'm so wishy washy. I say I trust you, and then I'm sitting in the passenger seat reaching for the wheel when something doesn't happen fast enough or the way that I want it to, like, especially regarding my children. When I think they're going to love where I live and they're going to want to move there and they don't, my heart just gets crushed. And then I think, okay, God, you're taking a little too long, and I don't think you really know what's happening. So I'll take it from here. Thank you very much. That happened way too long until I finally got to the point where, again, He got my full attention and I said, okay, fine, fine, have it your way. I keep coming up short. Obviously, I don't know what I'm doing. So why don't you take the wheel from now on? And I'm not gonna reach for it. And every time I'm tempted to for a split second, I don't do it, but I just think about it. Well, I thought this was going to happen and it's not. It's okay though. The second most wonderful lesson I've learned is how to rest and be still. And this comes with trusting. So when I choose to trust Him instead of fretting and having anxiety and feeling that yucky nervousness in my heart, like, oh, great, how am I going to fix this? How is this going to work out? How am I going to be able to find just the right house in the right neighborhood where my kids are going to want to come spend time with me? How? I don't see, God. I don't see how it's going to happen. And I do something that I've never been good at doing, which is literally just sitting still, not doing a thing, and just resting and just breathing and just saying, okay, God, I trust you. And the verse that keeps coming to my mind is when Peter walked out on water to God and it was stormy and wild. And when he looked down to the right or to the left and he saw the waves, he started to sink. And I think about that story every single day because you can't break a bad habit overnight. And so I've learned how just to sit still and to let God do the work, let Him work in my kids' hearts, let Him do what I can't do, open the doors that I can't open, and just trust, because me worrying and fretting is not going to help one bit whatsoever. And I can be very persuasive, so I've been used to just basically having my way and getting what I want, and not out of a bratty, selfish way, but I just think that I have really good ideas, and I think if you wanna be the most productive, the most efficient, the most in shape, have the most fun, just stick with me. I got you. And so for me to come along and really just have God say that to me, just say, "Anna, I've got the best ideas. Just stick with me. I've got you." And for me to say, "Okay, God, okay, okay." For me to believe that I don't have to strive and hustle to make shit happen is an epiphany to me. And for me to actually put it in God's hands during the season of isolation and trust Him has been a huge learning experience. And so after learning to trust Him and to rest and be still leads to one of the other biggest lessons, which has been experiencing true, authentic peace for the first time in my life. The real peace that surpasses all understanding, no matter how bleak it looks. When your daughter says she wants to move to Nashville and then she changes her mind, and you just wanna die inside because you felt like you were so close to having them again. When that can happen and you can just say, "Okay, God, I just trust you." And the peace that overwhelms me is something that I've learned to value. Peace in my life in every way. Peace knowing that my season with my ex-boyfriend was great, but peace knowing there could be someone better that God has for me, and I'm totally open to that. And peace knowing that I can't control or change my kids' minds, that God is ultimately in control of that, and He will bring them to me in the right timing, and until then, He's gonna give me His peace, and He's gonna sustain me and give me comfort and joy, and giving me the peace of knowing that I am right where I'm supposed to be. My only job is to make space and to let go of what no longer serves me. And I know as I keep my eyes straight on Him, do not look to the right or to the left. You cannot look at the storm and the waves, or it'll become overwhelming. And I'll tell you, in the beginning of my season of solitude, I kept my eyes on the waves, and sometimes they were so big. I found myself saying, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't. It's too hard because I was fighting the season of solitude. I don't want to be alone anymore. I want my old comforts. I want to be with my kids. Do I need to go back to Hawaii and just give up? And I don't want to do this anymore, Lord, because I don't know how an uneducated woman such as myself, single, divorced, mother of three, is able to make it in this world. I have a calling on my life and I have a voice and I have a message. How am I going to get it out there? How am I going to make an impact in this world? How am I going to help people get unstuck when I myself feel like it's too hard? And so that is why I'm telling you, I'm being totally authentic with you. I have nothing to hide. I will always be working on stuff. But the bottom line is, you've got to learn to control your mind. You cannot dwell on the past and you cannot dwell on the future. You have to just dwell on the present, the here and now. And this is what I literally have been training my mind to do while I'm in my apartment, while I'm going about my day, is when I start to go in the past and I start to think about the people who've hurt me and what I'm missing out on and what I miss and what I long for and all that stuff. I go, no, no, control your mind, Anna. There's a verse in the Bible in Corinthians, 2 Corinthians, that says to captivate every thought. And when I start to think about the future and I'm worried about stuff, I say, no, 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 come back here. Like, there's no point in doing that either. To think about now, I am so comfortable. I'm in this beautiful sanctuary. My kids are healthy. I'm healthy. I have so much going for me. I mean, I just finished writing a book called Unavailable about why we keep choosing the wrong people and how to become unavailable to toxic love. I've always wanted to write a book. I finally did it. And I launched a podcast, this podcast, obviously. And I created an online course about relationships and how to become magnetic, which was a big project. And I couldn't do it alone. I did it with my help, my team. And I'm scaling my coaching business and impacting people's lives and helping people move on from toxic relationships and heal the relationship to themselves. And the feedback and the results are amazing and it's so inspiring and encouraging. And scaling my business and making the most money I've ever made in my life. There's so many blessings and so much to be thankful for, and I'm healthy and strong, and mentally, I'm the strongest I've ever been. It's those moments when you take your eyes off of God for a minute and you start to look at the waves, you start to sink. You're only human. And that's where you have to learn to control your mind. And so that brings me to this last part about how controlling your mind and humbling yourself to realize what's important in my life. Do I want to be right in these relationships and prove that they were wrong and that they hurt me? Because it's been years that I have let relationships with my dad and my sisters kind of lay dormant because they betrayed me and they hurt me. And I've been content to let those relationships just fall to the wayside and just say, you know what? Your loss. You could take responsibility and apologize, but you haven't. So that's on you. What does that really do? That really affects me more than them. And it shows that they have power over me in my mind and my spiritual life. And I don't want that anymore. Another thing my ex-boyfriend would do is he would really encourage me to make it right with my dad and my sisters. He said, don't ever give up. Be persistent. Keep going after them. I didn't want to. I was prideful. I didn't want to make it right. I didn't care if I ever spoke to them again. Also, if you're fearful avoidant, I'm securely attached, but my second is fearful avoidant. If you break trust with me, you're not getting back inside my circle of trust. It's so easy for us to be hot and cold and just to pull away if we feel betrayed because that's our biggest fear. But I got to the point where I kept hearing his voice in the back of my head and then also God getting me to the season of isolation where he said, it's time. One more thing to strip away from you is your ego and your pride and your unforgiveness. And so I said, fine, let's do this, God. Let's go. I had the opportunity to fly to LA a couple weeks ago for a really amazing photo shoot, and I was able to meet my father for lunch, and we had a great time catching up. We didn't talk about the past, okay? And it was just an enjoyable time over lunch where we hugged and we took selfies and we caught up in each other's life and I met his girlfriend and that was so healing for my heart. And so I want to encourage you, if there's somebody you're not forgiving, you cannot have a decent relationship romantically with anyone if you hate your parents or if you're unforgiving towards them. It's just not going to happen. And that struck a nerve with me because in my next relationship, I want it to be the most healthy, aligned relationship ever. And if my unforgiveness towards my father is getting in the way, why would I want that? Why would I allow that? Because the only way that would be allowed is if my ego was too big. And so I'd had that restoration with my father. And then literally just the other day, I was on my knees praying and I said, God, what do you want me to do next? What else do I got to work on? Come on, bring it on. Let's do this. And he said, text your sister. And I was like, "Oh god, I'm, like, right in the middle of something, though." I remember I was praying, but I was also doing something. I was like, I'll text her when this song's over or whatever." And he's like, "No, do it right now." And so I reached for my phone and I texted my sister, my older sister, and I said, "Hey, I'm just thinking about you. Hope you're doing well," or something. And I have not texted her in probably a couple years. And she wrote back, like, "Thinking about you, love you, Anna." Okay, wow, like, wow, that felt really healing. I could go on and on about all the gifts, but you can clearly see that the season of isolation is a blessing in disguise if you let it be. But if you try and run from it, you're not gonna get the blessing. I'll end with this in regards to romantic relationships. If you're single and you're in the season of isolation, I want you to keep this at the top of your mind. God is doing a work in you. He wants to prepare you for someone else. And at the same time, he's preparing that person. Otherwise, he wouldn't be having you in this season. So, do you want to be aligned? Do you want to become the best version of yourself? Or do you want to continue in your negative patterns, in your limiting beliefs, and your addictions or your distractions? Like TV is a huge distraction that the enemy uses to keep people complacent. So, challenge for you, if you find yourself every single day watching hours of TV, you have drifted so far from your potential. And I want to just say, maybe it's time for you to wake up and to use your time better, more productively, because you only have one life. And you watching TV, you will literally have nothing to show for it months from now, years from now. Think about what you can do to level up your life and to add value to other people's lives. I mean, it's not all about you. It's about God created you to add value to other people's lives. Short and sweet, period. So, what are you doing to add value to people's lives? I want to end with this, with the drinking thing, that I was drinking because I felt guilty and I felt lonely. Drinking is fine, but if you're drinking for the wrong reasons to feel different, to numb a feeling, or if you're eating to feed your emotions, that's not healthy. And God wants to get your attention. Just lay it down. It's not serving you. One of my clients actually said that he wasn't enjoying alcohol, and it stood out to me. I was like, really? I'm not either. So why am I still drinking? I realize I'm drinking because I feel lonely for my children, not for a boyfriend or a husband, but lonely for my children. And I felt guilty for being apart from them for so long. And so I stopped drinking for about a month, and then I made excuses to start drinking again. And then I realized things started changing, and I saw now that God didn't know, God no longer had my full attention. And he saw that too. And so I said, okay, I'm not drinking. I'm not saying I'm not going to have a glass of wine for the rest of my life, but I'm saying I know that I was drinking for the wrong reasons and I was convicted. I would rather God do his work in my life than lean on alcohol to numb the loneliness. I read this sentence on Instagram and it said, why numb the moment when God can be in it with you? And I was like, wow, that hit me like a ton of bricks. You're right. Why numb this moment of loneliness when God can come in it with me instead? And so now it's literally by the grace of God that I don't crave alcohol, that I don't even think about it. I make a mocktail every night with sparkling water and stevia. And there's some tart cherry juice in here and a fresh lemon. And I love it. A ritual of making a mocktail, sitting down, playing my guitar, writing a song. And so whenever I would start to feel lonely, I literally would just say, God, I invite you into this moment of loneliness with me. And it worked. And I also prayed, God, like break the chains of feeling like I need alcohol. I don't want to be dependent on alcohol or love or relationships or sex or money or anything. So I invite you into this moment of loneliness or guilt or fear or whatever it is with me right now. And it works. And so that's where I am in my life right now regarding alcohol. Again, there's nothing wrong with drinking, but if you're drinking for the wrong reasons and you're using it as a crutch and you think, wow, what would happen if I actually laid it down for a little while? Would God have my full attention? Because as long as you have a distraction in your life, he does not have your full attention. And when he finally gets your full attention, he can do some pretty amazing shit. I can tell you that much right now. And does he care that I say shit? I don't think so. It's just another word for poop. So anyhow, well, I'm going to wrap it up right now. And I appreciate you being here. If you have not followed me on YouTube, please do that and share this with a friend who's in a season of isolation and leave me a rating and a review. I would love it so much because we need to get this podcast out there. I haven't seen the metrics and I have not put a ton of effort into growing the podcast except for uploading content weekly. This is my baby. This is my passion. I know it's going to grow, but I need your help. And so I also want you to go get some freaking wind in your hair this week. All right? Push yourself outside your comfort zone. Do something you would normally not do. Challenge yourself to level up. And I'll see you next week. Aloha.